Giriraja Shanyavadi Paschatya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Shila Gurudeva, Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajaka Stotra Satasri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajaka Stotra Satasri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So before I begin speaking, I will take your leave for 1 minute and I will be right back. The theme of my talk about Srila Prabhupada today will be, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he? That line is taken from a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, which I shall read because it reminds me so much of Srila Prabhupada and his merciful nature. So the verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, verse 23, is very significant. Not only is the verse beautiful, but it also has historical significance. When 16 years, Sukadev Goswami came out of the womb, he left home immediately, and his father, Srila Vyasadeva, followed him into the forest. And when Vyasadeva came close enough to his son for Sukadev to hear, he recited 2 verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, one describing Krishna's beauty from the 10th canto, and one, this verse, describing Krishna's mercy. When Shukadev Goswami heard these 2 verses, the one describing Krishna's mercy and the one describing Krishna's beauty, he became attracted. Although liberated, he became attracted by Krishna's transcendental qualities, and he came back to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from his father. I quote this verse because it reminds me of Srila Prabhupada. How shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he? Aho bhakiyam stanakalakutam jigam sapayayarapyas asadvi lebe gatim datruchitam tatonyam Kamba Dayavalum Sharanam Brajema. Translation. How shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he, who granted the position of mother to a she-demon, Putana, although she was unfaithful, and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. Probably many of you know this pastime from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. But Putana was a she-demon who came to Vrindavan to kill Krishna. She assumed a beautiful form, and the residents of Vrindavan, headed by Mother Yashoda, were so struck by her beauty that they allowed her to take Krishna in her arms. And she suckled him, but she had put poison in her breast to kill Krishna. And of course, Krishna was not killed, and ultimately Putana was killed. So now, with that background, I'll read the verse again. Alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he, who granted the position of mother to a she-demon, Putana, although she was unfaithful, and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here is an example of the extreme mercy of the Lord, even to his enemy. It is said that a noble man accepts the good qualities of a person of doubtful character, just as one accepts nectar from a stalk of poison. So, Lord is absolute, all good for everyone, and he is neutral toward everyone. He is always thinking of how to do good for others. So even if one approaches him as an enemy, he will try to do good for the person, as in the case of Putana. Although she came to kill Krishna by administering poison from her breast, he elevated her to the position of a nurse, like a mother, in the spiritual world. And as merciful as Krishna is, I would say that Srila Prabhupada is even more merciful. Srila Prabhupada said, it is the mark of a good man that he takes the good side, not the bad side of others. He gave the example of his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta had a disciple named Kunja Bihari Das. People used to call him Kunja Babu, who, Srila Prabhupada said, came to do business with their Guru Maharaj, to profit personally from his relationship with him and from his service to the Gaudiya Math. There's some noise. It needs to be muted. Okay, thank you. So, again, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta had a disciple named Kunja Bihari Das, who, Srila Prabhupada said, came to do business with their Guru Maharaj, to profit personally from his relationship with him and from his service in the Gaudiya Math. But Srila Prabhupada said their Guru Maharaj didn't take Kunja's dark side, that he was coming to make business, but took the bright side, that he was coming to offer service. In Srila Prabhupada's conversation with Bob Cohen on February 28, 1972 in Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada said, Putana Rakshasi, she offered Krishna poison. But Krishna is so nice that he thought, she took me as my mother. So he took the poison and delivered her. Krishna does not take the bad side. A good man does not take the bad side. He takes only the good side. Just like one of my god brothers, he wanted to make business with my Guru Maharaj, but my Guru Maharaj did not take the bad side. He took the good side. He thought, he has come forward to give me some service. So coming back to the purport, in his babyhood, the Lord was administered deadly poison by Putana, a she-demon who tried to kill the wonderful baby. And because she was a demon, it was impossible for her to know that the Supreme Lord, even though playing the part of a baby, was no one less than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His value as the Supreme Lord did not diminish upon his becoming a baby to please his devotee Yashoda. The Lord may assume the form of a baby or a shape other than that of a human being, but it doesn't make the slightest difference. He is always the same Supreme. A living creature, however powerful he may become by dint of severe penance, can never become equal to the Supreme Lord. Lord Krishna accepted the motherhood of Putana because she pretended to be an affectionate mother, allowing Krishna to suck her breast. The Lord accepts the least qualification of the living entity and awards him the highest reward. That is the standard of his character. Therefore, who but the Lord can be the ultimate shelter? So this verse reminds me of Srila Prabhupada. How shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he? There was no one more merciful than Srila Prabhupada. Lord Nityananda is most merciful. And Srila Prabhupada manifested the same quality of mercy as Nityananda Prabhu. In Bombay, Srila Prabhupada received a phone call from the temple president in Calcutta, who reported that one of Prabhupada's earliest disciples from America had come to Calcutta and was smoking ganja, marijuana, and asked what to do. Prabhupada told his secretary to relay his response. Quote, tell him that if he doesn't stop smoking ganja, I will reject him, end quote. Afterwards, Tamal Krishna Goswami asked, is it true that if he doesn't stop smoking ganja, you will reject him? And Prabhupada said, no, I cannot reject anyone. The mercy of Lord Nityananda has no limit. Then, maybe 2 years later, we were in Juhu, and Srila Prabhupada had a disciple who fell into bad company and was living on Juhu Beach with a bogus so-called yogi doing tricks. He was putting a coin in his ear and then making it come out the other. Different strange things to collect money. And he was known as a disciple of Prabhupada and a member of ISKCON. So Tamal Krishna Goswami approached Srila Prabhupada and said, this is happening, and he's giving you a bad name and giving ISKCON a bad name. You should reject him. And again, Srila Prabhupada replied, I cannot reject anyone. Tamal Krishna Goswami asked, but don't you have to draw the line somewhere? And again, Srila Prabhupada said, the mercy of Lord Nityananda has no limits. Srila Prabhupada is the manifest representative of Lord Nityananda, and his forgiveness is like Lord Nityananda's. How shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he? Srila Prabhupada. Another similar quality of Srila Prabhupada's is that he was always willing to give someone a chance. Around 1976, a strange person with a PhD came to the Juhu temple and said he wanted to join. And Srila Prabhupada invited him to stay upstairs with his personal staff in the flat adjoining his. And Prabhupada spent quite a bit of time with him. Hansaduta Prabhu was visiting at the time, and he told Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you are just wasting your time with this man. He's never going to amount to anything. But Prabhupada kept spending time with him. And in the end, the man left. He never did amount to anything. But when Hansaduta mentioned that to Prabhupada, I could see that he was never going to amount to anything. Prabhupada replied, I wanted to give him a chance. Another person whom Srila Prabhupada encouraged was Dr. C.P. Patel, who would almost always accompany Prabhupada on his morning walks on Juhu Beach. They had a friendly relationship, but Dr. Patel would sometimes speak like a Mayavadi. Prabhupada would accuse him, "You are a Mayavadi." And Dr. Patel would reply, "No, sir, I'm a Vaishnav, a pure Vaishnav." One morning, Dr. Patel and Srila Prabhupada had a huge argument. Dr. Patel would bring up different so-called holy men of India. And if they were not up to the standard, Prabhupada would criticize them. So one morning, Srila Prabhupada was criticizing one of Dr. Patel's favorite revered so-called saints of India. And Dr. Patel and he had a huge argument. Dr. Patel raised his voice to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada raised his voice to Dr. Patel. They were literally shouting at each other. And Dr. Patel's friends, his cronies, were trying to pull him away, saying, "Don't upset Swamiji. He has a heart condition." And eventually they pulled him away. Back at Hare Krishna land, Tamal Krishna Goswami approached Srila Prabhupada in his room and asked him, "What is Dr. Patel's position? Is he a Vaishnava or a Mayavadi, an impersonalist?" In response, Prabhupada told a story about a man who could speak many languages. In whatever language people addressed him, he could respond fluently. No one could figure out where the man was actually from. After much discussion, the neighbor said, "I will find out." So one day, when the man was preoccupied, the neighbor came up behind him and gave him a big whack. And when the man started to curse in his native tongue, his origin was disclosed. Dr. Patel is like that, Prabhupada said. He can speak very expertly. He can sound like a devotee, sound like a Vaishnav, sound like a Mayavadi, sound like anything. But when I gave him a slap where it really hurt, the so-called saintly person that he revered, his real language came out. "So why do you put up with him?" Tamal Krishna asked. "He's so offensive." And Prabhupada replied, "It is our duty to engage everyone." He wanted to give Dr. Patel a chance. And as the years passed, Dr. Patel developed great affection for Srila Prabhupada. And after Prabhupada left this world, wrote a beautiful article for Back to Godhead about his relationship with Prabhupada. The article was titled, "My Life's Most Precious Moments," with the subtitle, "A Bombay Doctor Wins the Title Big Fool and Loves It." Because Prabhupada would always call Dr. Patel a mudha. He would say, "I am not saying, Krishna is saying, Namam Duskritna Mudha." Anyone who doesn't surrender to Krishna is a mudha, fool. So how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than Srila Prabhupada? His divine grace had so many wonderful qualities, but his most important quality, especially for us, was his extreme mercifulness. Srila Prabhupada had a good friend in Bombay named Bhogilal Patel. Bhogilal was elder to Srila Prabhupada by about 3 years. And was extremely pious. The first devotee to meet him was Gargamuni. When Gargamuni was explaining Srila Prabhupada's work, Motilal Patel wept profuse tears of appreciation. One day, some years later, Motilal Patel came to meet Srila Prabhupada at Prabhupada's flat at the back of Hare Krishna land. I had a close relationship with Motilal, so I brought him up to meet Prabhupada. The two of them were talking, and as is natural in a conversation, when Prabhupada was speaking, I would look at him. And when Motilal was speaking, I would look at him. But at one stage, while Motilal was speaking, I looked at Srila Prabhupada, which Prabhupada wasn't expecting. And he was looking at me with such love and affection, like a father or a grandfather. By age, Srila Prabhupada was more like a grandfather. I was surprised that he was looking at me with so much love. But as soon as he saw me looking at him, he changed his expression and became very grave and serious. I think it was some special mercy that I got a glimpse of how much love he had for us, which he didn't usually show very openly. His love for us was manifest in his care for us and his giving us the knowledge of Krishna consciousness and engaging us in Krishna's service. Srila Prabhupada was very reserved about touching people, including even his disciples. In 1971 in Gorakhpur, as guests of Hanuman Prasad Podar of Gita Press, we were staying in his large estate, Sri Krishna Niketan, which had previously been his personal residence. Srila Prabhupada was traveling with his small Radha Krishna deities, and he wanted to establish an altar for them in Sri Krishna Niketan. He wanted some foliage for the altar, so he sent a couple of devotees, including me, to collect some. I went out to a thicket and was collecting branches and leaves. I wasn't tearing them live. I was looking for branches and leaves that had fallen. I just kept going deeper into the woods and collecting more and more foliage. And eventually I had a huge bundle, as much as I could possibly carry. So I lugged the bundle back to Sri Krishna Niketan and up the stairs. And when I reached the temple room, Srila Prabhupada was there and the altar was being set up. I just dropped the bundle on the floor and offered my obeisances. And while I was on the floor, Prabhupada patted me on the back. It was one of the only times, maybe the only time, that he physically touched me. I looked up and he was smiling broadly. I don't know if he even needed any more foliage, but he was pleased by my effort. So I ask you, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he? So this is my basic presentation about Srila Prabhupada's mercy. And now the devotees can share comments or ask questions. Again, I'll leave for a minute and be right back.
Hare Krishna, dearest devotees. Again, I would request humbly to those who wishes to ask Maharaj a question to first raise your virtual hand, and then we shall invite you to ask the questions. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So would any devotees? Oh, I see Jai Chaitanya has his hand raised. So maybe we'll begin with him.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for this nice presentation. Maharaj just said that the love is manifested in care. So often we hear about devotee care. I feel it is like very huge, a big thing when we talk about devotee care. Does it mean like spiritual care, material care? Say someone lack basic needs or education for children. This I really don't know, Maharaj. What is this devotee care when we mean to express our love through care of devotees?
Well, we want to care for devotees in every respect, physical, emotional, and spiritual. Of course, most important is spiritual. Mm-hmm. But we also want to care for them in other aspects of their lives, because every aspect of their life is ultimately related to their devotional service. And we should be ready to extend ourselves to the other devotees. I recently received a message from a devotee saying how she was always very busy in her own service. And she didn't really take much time to care for other devotees. But later she realized that yes, her own service is important, but it's also an important part of her service to help other devotees. So we definitely want to do that. Yeah. Medically also. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada said we should be sympathetic. One of the qualities of a devotee is he's sympathetic. So we should be sympathetic to everyone, but especially to other devotees who need help. Are there any other questions or comments?
Guru Maharaj, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for this wonderful presentation. Very enlightening. Guru Maharaj, what you said is just so beautiful. What you read is so beautiful. However, at my stage, I feel it's like a very distant goal. Sometimes in some good consciousness, I may try to imitate being more merciful than my capacity and feel some help and reciprocation. But
And-
other times, and feel some help and reciprocation.
Oh, yes.
But other times, Guru Maharaj, the material world comes to slap you and beat you down. And then sometimes wise advice from other seniors and experienced personalities is act at your level. And it's just like how to keep progressing beyond our level at the same time stay enthused when in the face of challenges.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm following the question. You're saying that you want to be merciful, but then you may extend yourself to others beyond your capacity.
Yes.
But sometimes you feel you're getting positive help in your efforts.
Yes.
But sometimes the material world beats you down.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, like in the sense that others have their limitations or their conditionings, and it just feels like it's, sorry for thinking like that, but unless I give you my symptoms, how would you diagnose? Um, um, it feels like others may be taking advantage or being inconsiderate of my limitations or my capacities. And so how to tread the boundaries between trying to do what pleases Guru and Krishna and at the same time trying to be wholesome in my approach and not artificial.
That's a very good question. I think of a letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote to Rameshwar, in which he said that that the highest service is preaching, but even higher than preaching is saving yourself first. So, yes, we want to extend ourselves to others, but not in a way or to an extent that our own spiritual life is compromised. That would be counterproductive. Yeah. There was a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, which my dear God brother Sridhar Swami used to teach as the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Vaishnavas. And one of the principles is think win-win. In other words, it should be a win for me and it should be a win for you. You know, materialistic people, egoistic people, they think win-lose. They just want to win. They don't care if you lose or not. And then there's a certain type of falsely altruistic person that thinks lose-win. And that cannot sustain itself, which means that ultimately it will become lose-lose. Everyone will lose. So Stephen Covey, or His Holiness Sridhar Swami, says think win-win in such a way that I will win and the other person will also win. Jai, Hare Krishna. Yes, Varda Krishna Das. Please unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah,
Nice to see you.
Krishna, thank you very much for your response. So, is it correct to say that, I mean, reading from your book, the amount of enthusiasm you had to serve Prabhupada, you know, going out in the morning, coming late, you know, and still carrying on and trying to keep a cool head. So this is very inspiring because what we find that, you know, when we talk of capacity, that we may think that we have a certain capacity, but when we connect it to Krishna, that it seems that Krishna had and allow us to go beyond that. I mean, I see it in your case, I see it in the case of Srila Prabhupada himself, where he never complained of, you know, I mean, time zone, about, you know, jet lag. So, I mean, what is your comment on this, Maharaj?
What you said is absolutely true. That, as we've been saying, you know, there's no limit to the mercy of Lord Nityananda, or no mercy to the limit of Srila Prabhupada. And so they can, you know, empower us to do things that are beyond our ordinary capacity. Yeah, I think you were referring to my new book here.
Yeah, correct.
The temple, the Jews story.
Yeah, let there be a temple, yeah.
And it's true. I mean, we did things that ordinarily we would not be able to do. I don't even know if I'd be able to do them now, but I was able to do them then. Of course, I was younger then. But, you know, I think Srila Prabhupada just empowered us to do things beyond our ordinary capacity and to enjoy it.
Yeah, I think I take this opportunity, Maharaj, if you permit, that I've read your 3 books before, but this book allows me to understand the person, Giriraja Swami, whom I met in my early days. So I'm really very, very thankful and grateful, you know, for your mercy to have kept me up to here. You know, thank you very much, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Right.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances. So your class has been on mercy. So in life, do we look for mercy, or the mercy flows by itself when you engage in the service?
Well, both. I mean, we want mercy, and at the same time, we try to act in such a way that we will attract mercy by doing what will please our superiors, what will please the personalities whose mercy we are seeking. And that could be, rendering some personal service to them. It could be, supporting a cause that is dear to them. In one sense, our whole process is to attract mercy. But the way we attract mercy is, through service. And it's in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that when we offer obeisances to someone, the idea there also is to attract their mercy. Yeah. So, and of course, attentive japa is very important. Cheto darpano marjanam, to cleanse the heart. Attentive japa, rising early in the morning. I have a god brother in Gainesville, Florida, named Kalakanta Prabhu. And he says the best advice that he gives to devotees is to take rest early. Because if they take rest early, they can get up early. And then if they get up early, they can chant and engage in all their other spiritual activities at the most auspicious time, the most powerful time of Brahma Muhurta, before sunrise. When I was in Juhu, after the big temple opened, which was after Srila Prabhupada left, I became friends with some Muslims, Ahmadiyya Muslims. And they said that in their tradition, Allah hears the prayers of devotees more before sunrise. So these Ahmadiyya Muslims used to come to Juhu early in the morning, and I guess offer their prayers to Allah before sunrise to get his maximum merciful response.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Are there any other questions or comments? Oh, yes. Subhas Shet.
Hare Krishna Maharaj Bhadra.
Hare Krishna, yes. I recognize you, but I was honoring the name.
Dandavad.
Yes.
Dandavad, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to your services. You talked about the mercy And of course, Srila Prabhupada is the most merciful personality, no doubt about it. But at the same time, he had rejected his Sanskrit scholar, who is, I'm not here to criticize him, he's senior to me, but he rejected the Sanskrit scholar. Is that because he was breaking the Siddhanta? And that's why Srila Prabhupada rejected him? Because when it comes to Siddhanta, Srila Prabhupada was very, very, very firm about it. Is that what we can take from this example?
It's a very important example because we're discussing how merciful Srila Prabhupada is, and there's no limit to Lord Nityananda's mercy. But he did reject this one disciple. But I don't think I would say it was because of Siddhanta. I mean, Prabhupada could correct deviations in Siddhanta. But what really happened was that disciple or so-called disciple, that disciple became offensive to Srila Prabhupada. He found some Sanskrit scholar in Vrindavan from whom he was learning. And he thought that that scholar, Sanskrit scholar in Vrindavan, was more knowledgeable than Srila Prabhupada. And that Srila Prabhupada hadn't really given us the true philosophy of Krishna. I mean, it's like really bad, really bad. And Srila Prabhupada rejected him. He had to. And when that devotee asked for Prabhupada's blessings to leave Prabhupada and go to the Sanskrit scholar, Srila Prabhupada said, yes, I give you my blessings to become a snake. So, I mean, that was like really heavy. That was exceptional. And that was also Prabhupada's mercy. Prabhupada was trying to bring the fellow to his senses. And eventually he did sort of come back, that Sanskrit scholar. He did, and he did some service and
Good. Thank you.
reconciliation
Mm-hmm.
between him and Srila Prabhupada. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. That was a good question. Any other questions or comments? Advaita Hari, Prabhu.
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, nice to see you.
Give me a Dhanvat Pranam.
Jai.
Guru Maharaj, I was having a question. Nowadays, I was trying to read Yamuna Mataji's book. So, in that, I read about when you all went to Vrindavan for the first time to clean Prabhupada's room at Radha Damodar temple and everything.
You're saying
Hari Bol.
Devi's?
Yeah, I was sorry, actually phone's battery low.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was just asking, what was your feeling when you first went there and everything? How was it?
You mean when I first went to Vrindavan, or specifically to Radha Damodar?
Yeah, to Vrindavan and to Prabhupada's room.
Yeah. It was very special, and I felt Krishna's presence. And after I returned to Bombay from Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada asked about my experience, and I said, you know, I could practically feel Krishna's presence. I really felt like that. And Prabhupada said, yes, that's very nice. You cannot see Krishna yet, but you can feel his presence. And yeah, it was very special going to Srila Prabhupada's old rooms at Radha Damodar with Guru Das, you know, Yamuna Devi's husband. And, it was interesting to see because there were many things there from before Srila Prabhupada went to America. Different things related to his pharmaceutical business and different preaching programs that he tried to organize. I remember one letter was very striking. Some Mayavadi, I imagine, some Mayavadi was having a Bhagavad Saptaha in Bombay and was inviting Srila Prabhupada to attend. And Srila Prabhupada replied, not only will I not attend, but I will tell all of my friends and acquaintances that they also should not attend. He wanted to save them from Mayavad. Yeah, it was quite straightforward. That was also one thing about Srila Prabhupada. I mean, we've been talking about how merciful he is, but he was very straightforward and would not compromise. Yeah, I went to, yeah, but that was also his mercy. That was also his mercy, that he wouldn't compromise. He would tell the truth.
Guru Maharaj, I was having one more question.
All right.
In the lecture you told about Gorakhpur.
Yes.
So I was just thinking, have you got chance to, like, you interacted with Hanuman Prasad ji or anyone, or only with Prabhupada?
No, there was a meeting, maybe more than one, but there's at least one meeting between Srila Prabhupada and Sri Hanuman Prasad ji Podar. Yeah. Yeah. And Sri Hanuman Prasad ji Podar was very appreciative of Srila Prabhupada's work. Yeah, very appreciative. And they had some correspondence, Srila Prabhupada and Sri Hanuman Prasad ji Podar. Yeah, it was a nice relationship they had. There's a picture also of Srila Prabhupada with Sri Hanuman Prasad.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dhamma Pranam.
So, Rasika Sindhu, do you have your hand up?
Yes, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, thank you so much for so much nectar. My question, my question is concerning His Holiness Bhakti Swami Maharaj. we've been told that you were the first one who invited Maharaj to come to Mauritius during the early days. And my question is, Maharaj, we would like to know more about how you invited, I mean, why you invited him and how things were when you invited, and how he reacted to come to Mauritius for the first time during the early days of ISKCON Mauritius.
Well, His Holiness Bhakti True Swami Maharaj is very kind and merciful. And I felt that he could be very helpful in Mauritius. I mean, I have my own limitations. That's one thing. And then the other thing is, I was American, and there were some people who wanted an Indian. And he and I were already working very well together in South Africa. So I invited him and he came. Yeah, recently, Narada Krishna reminding me of a program at his place with both His Holiness Bhakti True Swami Maharaj and me. So, yeah, it's probably the best thing I ever did for Mauritius. And I always keep, of course, this isn't Mauritius, but I always keep this photo nearby of him and me together. This was one of the many times he stayed with me in my ashram here in Carpinteria, California.
Wow. Thank you, Maharaj.
But yeah, devotees are very fond memories of those days when the two of us were called GBCs for Mauritius. Yeah, they're very, very happy times.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much for these drops of nectar.
So, Ajay Chaitanya, is your hand raised from before, or is it raised again?
I'm here, Maharaj, but if you have other devotees, better give them a chance.
Okay, Malati Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept humble obeisances, all the to Srila Prabhupada, all the to His Highness. Guru Maharaj, how can we be straightforward and at the same time humble? Because sometimes your straightforwardness hurt other devotees. So how can we be humble at the same time, Guru Maharaj?
Well, we should always be humble, and being straightforward can be good, but not always. We have to judge the circumstance. And yeah, Srila Prabhupada he made a few statements about criticism. He said there's an art to criticizing. He was telling a group of us, there's an art to criticizing, but unfortunately, you do not know that art. And then he gave an example, I think it must be from Sanskrit, but instead of saying that the tree is dead, which would be the straightforward way, you say that the tree, which is full of luxuriant branches and leaves and fruits and flowers, has lost its juice. It comes to the same thing, but Srila Prabhupada gave that example of like how to say it, in a way. So yeah, and we should pray, whenever we should always pray all the time, but whenever we're dealing with a devotee and, we want to convey a message, but we don't want to hurt the devotee, so we should pray, to the parampara to guide us, to make our words suitable. And we can also pray to Krishna in the heart. When I would do book distribution, I'd always be praying to Krishna in the heart of the potential buyer to inspire the person to take a book, to do some service, to give some Lakshmi. So, yeah, we should pray that we can speak in the proper way and pray that our message is received nicely.
Thank you, Guru. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj, I sometimes pray that I don't know how to pray. So I just, because there's the art to prayer also. So, uh, so I just,
Well, praying is natural, but Srila Prabhupada did give a formula for offering prayers. And he said that first one states the qualification of the person to whom one is praying. And then one states one's own disqualification. And then one prays for mercy. Yeah, we see this pattern in some of Narottam Das Thakur's songs, prayers. He prays to Lord Chaitanya, Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatar, that you're like the most merciful. And Mosamo Patita Prabhuna Paibayar, and I am the most fallen. But he's not saying it artificially, he's feeling it. You are the most merciful, and I'm the most fallen. So please save me first.
thank you so much. That's so beautiful, Maharaj. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I see there's a question in the chat box, but I think I answered it. It says, I have a question. Is it right to say that we shouldn't be merciful? Oh, I see. It's stated the other way. I have a question. Is it right to say that we shouldn't be merciful to others or help others at the expense of our own spiritual lives? Well, generally, being merciful to others will be beneficial for our spiritual lives. Yes, there may be a special case when we need to take care of, we need to chant our rounds or something like that. So at the moment, we might not be able to be merciful. But even then, you know, I think it's always good to be merciful, or almost always good. I think of a very a beautiful description of mercy written by Shakespeare in his play called The Merchant of Venice. And I'll read it because it's very appropriate for us as devotees, aspiring devotees. The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, the attribute of awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above the sceptered sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute of God himself. And earthly power then doth show likest God's when mercy seasons justice. Isn't that nice?
Maharaj, can you share that on GRS Sangha?
Okay. You mean on my mailing list?
Yes, good Maharaj. If it's an appropriate request, I don't know.
Yes. So, Ajay Chaitanya Prabhu, is your hand raised? Or is that from before?
Yes, Maharaj. I just wanted to know about your time. You have time or?
I'm fine with time.
Okay. Well, Maharaj mentioned about not the only time that Srila Prabhupada patted him after bringing the foliage, etc. I was also thinking about those devotees who are acting like Srila Prabhupada's personal servant, having the opportunity of massaging Srila Prabhupada for at least 1 hour daily. I'm also thinking of His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj on the practically perhaps the first meeting at this Cross Maidan festival, where despite other devotees not allowing him to touch the feet of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada said, yes, you can touch my feet. Any comment, Maharaj?
Yes. Well, the touching are of two different categories. The touching I mentioned was when Srila Prabhupada took the initiative to touch me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's quite common that we might take the initiative to touch Srila Prabhupada when giving a massage or, rendering some other service like that. In fact, I had that experience with massaging Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. It was sort of in his last days in Vrindavan, and he was pretty much confined to his bed. And Srila Prabhupada had told the story of a father who was, I guess, on his deathbed or very sick, and his sons were massaging him, but the sons could not cooperate. Say one was massaging right arm and another one said, no, you go away from there. I want to massage his right arm. And then another was massaging his left leg, and then another son said, oh, you go away from there. I want to, and they're quarreling. And while they're quarreling about who's going to massage which part of the father's body, the father died. So during Srila Prabhupada's last days, we were massaging him. We weren't fighting, and different disciples were massaging different parts of Prabhupada's body. And Tamal Krishna Goswami commented to Srila Prabhupada, the sons are cooperating to serve the father. But as I massaged Srila Prabhupada's right foot, I felt small particles of dust, which were magnified in my consciousness. I thought, this is the dust of the lotus feet of the pure devotee. I told Tamal Krishna that I felt so whole and complete and satisfied like never before in my life. And he conveyed the same into Prabhupada's ear. So, yeah, that was very special. So that, of course, we do touch Srila Prabhupada. His servants would give him massage every day, and on occasion, they would massage his feet at night. He was going to take rest. But for him to take the initiative to touch a disciple was unusual. That was unusual.
And about His Holiness Ranat Maharaj was his first visit, first time he met Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
His special mercy, or?
Well, I mean, I guess I'll give a little background of the story for those who don't know. But His Holiness Radhanath Swami came to our pandal at Cross Maidan, which ran from March 26th to April 4th, just about 50 years ago. In fact, His Holiness Radhanath Swami phoned me on March 26th on the 50th anniversary of him and me meeting, and his meeting Srila Prabhupada. So I was in charge of the book table, which is actually several long tables, wooden tables put together. And I knew from my experience on Sankirtan in America that the main thing is you have to put the magazine in the people's hands. And then they look at it, they see the pictures, they see the text, they become attached to it, and they want to keep it. And then you ask for a donation.
Mhm.
So I was doing that at the book table at the pandal, and people were just walking off with the magazines. So our main advisor, one of our main advisors then was Sadaji Whitlaw. And so I told Sadaji Whitlaw what was happening. And he said, oh, you can't do that in India. So I said, well, what do we do? He said, well, what you have to do is you poke a hole in the corner of the magazine, and then you thread a string through the hole and tie the string to the table, the leg of the table, so they can hold it, but they can't walk off with it. So at the time, this young man in faded white cloth with sort of matted hair was spending time at the pandal. And so I asked him, if he would help me, thread the strings through the corners of the magazine and tie them to the legs of the table. And that a person eventually became Radhanath Swami.
Mhm.
And so he said that was the first service. I engaged him in his first service to Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON. So then time came for Srila Prabhupada to speak. And I told the young man, you should go and listen to Guru Maharaj speak. So he was very humble, still is. And so he went way to the back of the audience. He wanted to be at the very back. He didn't want to be obtrusive in any way. And somehow Prabhupada spotted him, and he sent Guru Das into the crowd to bring him up to the stage. And Prabhupada had him sit near him, and he said, every evening you come and sit with me. So then it's true at the end, when Prabhupada was about to leave, Radhanath Swami wanted to touch Prabhupada's feet. There was sort of a rule that you couldn't do that. So Tamal Krishna Goswami intervened. He said, you can't touch Prabhupada's feet. But Prabhupada, smiled and looked very lovingly at Radhanath Swami and said, you can touch my feet.
Oh.
So yeah, Prabhupada was very merciful and perceptive, He probably could see something of the future of His Holiness Radhanath Swami in Krishna consciousness.
कैमरा दिख रहा है कि आपको बंद कर दीजिए.
So any other questions or comments?
अरे घंटे की क्लास 1 घंटे की क्वेश्चंस.
कहाँ पे बोल रहे हैं?
मॉरिशस. ये मैं भी मधुर संध्या के लिए किया है, आपको पसंद है ना?
Lalita Devi, is that you?
No, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. Well, there's Prem Vilas Prabhu. All right, well, if there are no more questions or comments, we can end now. If we're going to end, I would suggest we conclude with Vaishnava Pranam. So I'll say in English and then we can say in Sanskrit. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord who are just like desire trees, who can fulfill the desires of everyone and are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpa Anantakoti Giriraja.